Eliza. Wren's knees hit the dirt before she could catch herself. Blood dripped from her temple onto the dust of Willow Creek Station. The stagecoach driver spat tobacco and called out loud enough for every soul to hear, "Who's here for the mail-order bride?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "Damaged goods." Eliza gripped the coach wheel and forced her chin up. She had not survived 3 days of hell to die in the dirt of Wyoming. If this story touches your heart, subscribe and follow her journey to the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this tale travels. Wyoming Territory. Summer 1878. Eliza Wren tasted blood and dust and shame. Her fingers clawed at the splintered wood of the stagecoach step, but her legs refused to hold. The platform rushed up to meet her. She hit the ground hard, and pain exploded through her cracked ribs like fire through dry brush. The station fell silent. Then the whispers started. "Lord have mercy. Look at her face. That's his bride, the mail-order one." Eliza pressed her palm flat against the dirt and pushed herself up. Her vision swam. Her left eye was swollen half shut, and every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. But she would not stay down. Not here. Not in front of these strangers who looked at her like she was something to pity. The driver climbed down and stretched his back like he had not a care in the world. He cupped his hands around his mouth and hollered again. "Silas Drummond, your bride's here. Come collect her before she bleeds on my coach." More laughter. A woman turned her children away. A man in a fine coat shook his head and muttered something about desperation. Eliza's stomach turned, but she kept her chin up. She had learned young that showing weakness invited cruelty. These people did not know her. They did not know what she had survived to stand here. They saw bruises and torn clothes and made their judgment. Let them. She reached for her trunk, the only thing she had left in the world. Her mother's photograph. Her father's ledger. 3 letters from a man named Silas Drummond, who had written plain words and made plain promises. The trunk was gone. Eliza's heart stopped. She spun around, pain shooting through her ribs, and searched the platform. Empty. The back of the coach. Empty. She turned to the driver, her voice cracking. "Where is my trunk?" The driver did not look at her. He busied himself with the horses. "Where is my trunk?" Eliza grabbed his arm. Her grip was weak, but her voice was not. "I had a trunk, brown leather, brass buckles. It was tied to the back." The driver shrugged her off. "Bandits took what they wanted 3 days ago. You was there. You saw. They took money. They took—" Eliza stopped. Her throat closed around the words. "They took money. They took dignity. They took hours of her life she would never speak of again. But the trunk had still been there when she crawled back into the coach. She had seen it. Reckon it fell off somewhere." The driver climbed back onto his seat. "Ain't my problem, miss. It's everything I own." "Then you should have held on tighter." The whip cracked. The horses lurched forward. The coach rolled away in a cloud of dust, and Eliza stood alone on the platform, with nothing but the clothes on her back and blood drying on her face. The crowd began to thin. People turned away, back to their lives, back to their judgment. A woman with kind eyes hesitated, then followed her husband into the mercantile. A boy stared until his mother yanked him along. Eliza stood perfectly still. She did not cry. She had stopped crying 3 days ago, when crying made things worse. Think. Think. She had no money, no clothes, no proof of who she was or why she was here. The man she had come to marry did not know her face. He knew only the words she had written, and the photograph she had sent, a photograph that was now somewhere on the road between here and Nebraska, probably trampled into the dirt. She could walk into town and beg. She could find the sheriff and report the theft. She could, "You Eliza Wren." The voice came from behind her, low and rough like boots on gravel. Eliza turned. A man stood at the edge of the platform, tall, broad shoulders, dust on his coat and hat pulled low. He did not move toward her. He just watched, eyes steady, waiting. Eliza straightened her spine. It cost her, but she did it. "Who's asking?" Silas Drummond. He stepped closer, and his eyes moved over her face. She saw them darken when they found the bruises, the split lip, the dried blood at her temple. His jaw tightened. "I'm the man you came to marry." Eliza's heart pounded. This was him. This was the man who had written those letters. The man who had promised a home and honest work, and a partnership built on respect. She had memorized every word. Now she stood before him, looking like something dragged behind a horse for 20 miles. "I know I don't look," she started. "What happened to you?" The question cut through her rehearsed words. It was not gentle, but it was not cruel either. It was direct, demanding, like a man who needed to know before he could decide what to do next. Eliza held his gaze. "Bandits. 3 days ago. They stopped the coach on the open road. And the driver didn't stop for a doctor. No." Silas's hands curled into fists at his sides. He turned toward the road where the stagecoach had disappeared, and for a moment, Eliza thought he might go after it. The muscle in his jaw worked like he was chewing on words too sharp to spit out. Then he turned back to her. "Can you walk?" "I've been walking for 3 days." Something flickered in his eyes, not pity. Something else. He nodded once, short and final like a decision made. "Then come with me. Doc Harrison's office is 2 streets over." He did not offer his arm. He did not try to carry her. He just started walking slow enough that she could keep pace fast enough that he was not coddling her. Eliza appreciated that more than she could say. The town watched them pass. Eliza felt the eyes like heat on her skin. She heard the whispers restart behind her. "That's her, the mail-order bride. Poor Silas. Sending for a wife and getting a stray dog instead. She won't last the winter. Look at her. One strong wind and she's done." Eliza kept her eyes forward. She had survived worse than whispers. Silas stopped at a small building with a wooden sign that read, "Dr. J. Harrison." He pushed open the door and held it for her. "After you." Eliza stepped inside. The office smelled of carbolic acid and tobacco. A man in spectacles looked up from a desk cluttered with papers and bottles. His eyebrows rose when he saw her face. "Good Lord, what happened?" "Bandits on the road," Silas said. "She's been traveling 3 days without treatment." Doc Harrison was already on his feet. He guided Eliza to a chair and tilted her chin toward the light. His touch was clinical but careful. He examined her temple, her ribs, her wrist. Ribs cracked, not broken. Wrist sprained. This cut needs cleaning and stitching. "When did you eat last?" Eliza tried to remember. The question felt too far away. "I don't know." "She's staying with me," Silas said from the doorway. "What does she need?" Doc Harrison gave him a long look. "She needs rest, clean bandages, food, water, time." He paused. "And she needs to know she's safe. That's not something I can prescribe." Silas met the doctor's eyes. "She'll have it." Eliza watched this exchange and felt something shift in her chest. She had expected negotiation, hesitation, the careful calculation of a man weighing whether damaged goods were worth the trouble. Instead, Silas spoke about her care like it was already decided, like there was no question. Doc Harrison stitched the cut on her temple. Eliza gripped the chair arms and did not make a sound. She had learned silence in harder places than this. When it was done, the doctor handed Silas a small bottle. Laudanum for the pain, a few drops only, and this. He held up a tin of salve for the bruises. "Keep the wounds clean. Change the bandages daily. If she gets a fever, bring her back immediately." Silas took the supplies and paid without arguing about the cost. He turned to Eliza. "Can you make it to the wagon?" She stood. The room tilted, but she locked her knees. "I made it this far." Outside, the summer heat pressed down like a hand. Silas helped her into a sturdy wagon without comment. He climbed up beside her, took the reins, and clicked his tongue at the horses. The town slid past. More stairs, more whispers. Eliza kept her eyes on the road ahead. They had cleared the last building when Silas spoke again. Those bandits. They take anything besides money. The question landed like a stone in still water. Eliza felt the ripples spread through her chest. She knew what he was asking. She had known someone would ask eventually. They took my trunk, she said carefully. Everything I owned. That's not what I'm asking. Eliza's throat tightened. She stared at the back of the horse, at the way the muscles moved under the dusty hide, at anything but the man beside her. Does it matter? Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then, not to me, but if there's someone I need to find and kill, I'd like to know. Eliza turned to look at him. His face was hard, unreadable, but his hands were white-knuckled on the reins. This was not curiosity. This was not judgment. This was a man asking if there was a debt that needed paying. 3 men, she said. One had a scar under his left eye. One was missing 2 fingers on his right hand. The third called himself Dutch, but I don't think it was his real name. Silas nodded slowly. Did they? They tried. Eliza's voice was flat. I fought. It cost me these ribs. They decided I wasn't worth the trouble. The wagon rolled on. The silence stretched. Then Silas said very quietly, Good. Eliza blinked. Good. That you fought. He glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something other than stone in his face. Something almost like respect. Most people wouldn't have. I'm not most people. No. He looked back at the road. I don't reckon you are. They drove in silence after that. The land opened up around them, rolling grassland, the distant blue of mountains, the endless sky that made Eliza feel both small and free. She had never seen country like this. In Philadelphia, the buildings crowded close, and the sky was a narrow strip between rooftops. Here, there was nothing but horizon. Silas's ranch sat in a shallow valley, a log house with a wide porch and a barn behind it. Smoke rose from the chimney despite the summer heat. Someone was inside. Silas pulled the wagon up to the house and jumped down. He circled around to Eliza's side and offered his hand. She took it. His grip was strong but careful, like he knew where she hurt without being told. This is home, he said. The word hit Eliza harder than she expected. Home. She had not had one of those in 5 years. She had had rooms she rented, and corners she slept in, and places she passed through. But not home. The front door opened, and a woman stepped out. Gray hair pinned back, sharp eyes, hands on hips. Silas Drummond, you best explain why this girl looks like she went 10 rounds with a grizzly. Martha, this is Eliza Wren. Eliza, this is Martha Boone. She runs the boarding house in town. She'll be staying here until the wedding, for propriety. Martha came down the steps and stopped in front of Eliza. She did not look at the bruises with pity. She looked at them with anger. Who did this to you, Kay? Bandits, Eliza said. On the road. And the driver left you like this? Yes, ma'am. Martha's jaw set hard. That man better hope I never see him again. She took Eliza's arm, gentle but firm. Come inside. I've got stew on the stove and a bed with clean sheets. You look like you haven't slept in a week. 3 days, Eliza said. Close enough. Inside the house was plain and clean. Wooden floors worn smooth by years of boots. A stone fireplace. A table with 4 chairs. The smell of cooking meat and something sweet, bread maybe, or pie. Martha guided Eliza to the main bedroom. The bed was large, covered with a quilt in faded blues and greens. The window faced east. This is Silas's room, Martha said. He'll sleep in the barn loft while I'm here. No one can say anything improper happened under this roof. I don't want to take his bed. You're not taking anything. He's giving it. Martha helped Eliza sit on the edge of the mattress. There's a difference. She left and returned with a bowl of stew bread and a cup of water. Eliza's hands shook as she ate. She had not realized how hungry she was until the first bite hit her tongue. Martha watched her eat without speaking. When the bowl was empty, she took it and set it aside. "Silas wrote you letters." It was not a question. Yes. He's not a man of many words, but the ones he uses, he means. Martha's eyes softened just slightly. He asked for a partner, not a decoration. He wanted someone who could work, think, and stand beside him. "Does that sound like something you can do?" Eliza met her gaze. "I've been working since I was 14. I kept books for my father's print shop. I can read, write, and do figures better than most men. I came here to build a life, not to be kept." Martha smiled, the first smile Eliza had seen from anyone in days. "Good. Then we'll get along fine." She helped Eliza out of her ruined dress and into a clean nightgown. She changed the bandage on her temple and rubbed salve into the bruises on her ribs. Her hands were rough but kind. When Eliza lay back against the pillows, exhaustion hit her like a wave. "Sleep," Martha said. "Tomorrow will come whether you're ready or not. Might as well face it rested." The door closed. The room went quiet. Eliza lay in the dark and listened to the house settle. She heard footsteps on the porch. Silas's voice, low and tense, asking Martha something she could not make out. Martha's response equally low. Then silence. Eliza closed her eyes. For the first time in 3 days, she felt something other than fear. She did not have a name for it yet. It was too new, too fragile. But it was there, small and warm, like an ember waiting for kindling. She had survived the road. She had arrived. Now she would have to figure out how to stay. Outside the window, the summer stars burned bright and steady over Wyoming. The land stretched endlessly in every direction, wild and unforgiving, and full of promise. Somewhere out there, the men who had hurt her were still free. Somewhere out there, other dangers waited, dangers she could not yet imagine. But for now, in this moment, Eliza Wren was safe. And that was enough. Eliza opened her eyes to unfamiliar walls and unfamiliar light, and for one terrible moment, she did not know where she was. Her body tensed, her hands fisted in the sheets. Then memory returned, the station, the fall, the man who had carried her here without asking for anything in return. She was in Silas Drummond's bed, in Silas Drummond's house. In Wyoming. She was alive. Eliza sat up slowly. Her ribs screamed in protest, but the pain was duller, now manageable. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed and tested her weight. The floor held. Her legs held. Legs. She could work with that. Voices drifted from somewhere beyond the door. Martha's sharp and clear, and a man's, not Silas. Someone else. Eliza found her ruined dress folded on a chair. Beside it lay a clean one, simple gray cotton, worn but whole. Martha must have left it. Eliza dressed quickly, ignoring the way her fingers trembled, and stepped out into the main room. Martha stood at the stove, stirring something that smelled of oats and honey. At the table sat a man Eliza did not recognize, middle-aged, well-dressed, with silver at his temples, and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He turned when she entered, and his gaze moved over her face with an interest that made her skin crawl. "Well now," he said. "So this is the famous mail-order bride." Martha's spoon stopped moving. "Mr. Cates, I didn't realize you'd met." "We haven't." The man rose and extended his hand. "Virgil Cates, I own the Double C Ranch north of here. Silas and I go way back." Eliza did not take his hand. She stood where she was and met his eyes. "Eliza Wren." Something flickered in Virgil's expression. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. He lowered his hand without offense and smiled wider. "Miss Wren, I heard about your troubles on the road. Terrible business. Just terrible." He shook his head slowly. "The frontier can be cruel to a woman alone. You're fortunate Silas found you when he did." "I found him," Eliza said. "I came here on purpose." Virgil's smile tightened just slightly. Of course you did. A woman of conviction. I admire that. The front door opened, and Silas stepped inside. He stopped when he saw Virgil, and something passed across his face, something cold and hard that Eliza filed away for later. Virgil! Silas. Virgil spread his hands wide. I came to welcome your bride. Neighborly, wouldn't you say? You could have sent a card. Cards are impersonal. I prefer the direct approach. Virgil's eyes slid back to Eliza. Besides, I wanted to see for myself. The whole town's talking about the woman who arrived covered in blood and bruises. I had to know what kind of person would survive something like that. Eliza felt Silas move closer. He positioned himself between her and Virgil without being obvious about it. She's healing, Silas said. And she doesn't need visitors. I'm sure she doesn't, but I'm not here for her. Virgil's smile turned sharp. I'm here for you. We have business to discuss. No, we don't. The water rights, Silas. The survey came back. Your east fence line runs across the creek bed I've been using for 20 years. I know where my fence line runs. I put it there. Then you know it's cutting off my cattle from the only reliable water source in 3 miles. Virgil's voice stayed pleasant, but his eyes were flat. That's not very neighborly. Your cattle have been crossing my land for years. I never said anything. But last month, your boys trampled my north pasture and cost me half my spring grazing. An accident. 3 times. Virgil spread his hands. The frontier is unpredictable. Cattle wander. Men make mistakes. He paused. But this doesn't have to be a problem. Sell me the east section. I'll pay fair market value and we can put this behind us. The east section's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Silas. You just haven't heard the right number yet. Eliza watched the exchange like a chess match. She saw the way Virgil leaned forward, confident pressing. She saw the way Silas held his ground, stone-faced, immovable. And she saw something else, a history between these men that ran deeper than water rights and fence lines. I think you should leave, Silas said. Virgil studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, harsh sound that held no humor. Still the same stubborn fool you were in '64. He picked up his hat from the table and turned toward the door. As he passed Eliza, he paused. Miss Wren, a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again. He touched the brim of his hat and walked out. The door closed behind him, and the room seemed to breathe again. Martha let out a long exhale. That man makes my skin itch. What did he mean? Eliza asked. 64? Silas did not answer immediately. He walked to the window and watched Virgil mount his horse and ride away. His shoulders were tight, his jaw set. We served together, he said finally, in the war. And nothing. He turned from the window. It was a long time ago. Eliza knew a closed door when she saw one. She let it go for now. What about the water rights? Is it true your fence cuts off his access? Silas's eyes met hers. The fence has been there for 8 years. Virgil never cared about that creek until the railroad announced they were coming through next spring. The land's worth 10 times what it was a year ago. So he wants your land. Cow! He wants everything. Always has. Silas moved toward the door. I've got work to do. Martha will help you settle in. Don't push yourself too hard. He was gone before Eliza could respond. She stood in the empty room and felt the weight of something she did not yet understand. This was not just about water or land. Something else lived between Silas and Virgil Cates, something old and bitter and dangerous. Martha touched her shoulder. Come eat. Questions can wait until you've got food in your belly. Eliza ate. She rested. She let Martha change her bandages and check her wounds. But her mind kept circling back to Virgil Cates and the look in Silas's eyes when he mentioned the war. 64. That would have been near the end of the fighting. Silas would have been young, barely 20. What had happened between them? By afternoon, Eliza could not stand the waiting anymore. She found Martha in the kitchen, kneading bread with efficient, practiced hands. "Tell me about Virgil Cates." Martha's hands slowed. "That's a question for Silas." Silas won't answer. "Then maybe it's not your question to ask yet." "Mrs. Boone." Eliza kept her voice steady. "I came here to marry a man I've never met. I have no family, no money, and no way home. If there's something I should know, something that could put me in danger, I need to know it now." Martha was quiet for a long moment. She shaped the bread into a loaf and set it aside. Then she wiped her hands on her apron and turned to face Eliza. "Silas doesn't talk about the war. Not to me, not to anyone. But I know he and Virgil served in the same regiment. Something happened, something bad. They came back enemies." She paused. "Virgil settled here first. Built his ranch, made his money, got himself elected to the town council. When Silas showed up 3 years later, Virgil tried to run him off. Silas wouldn't go. They've been circling each other like wolves ever since." "What kind of something? What happened during the war?" "I don't know. Nobody does." Martha's voice dropped. "But I'll tell you this, I've seen Virgil Cates smile while good men lost their land. I've seen him offer help with one hand and take everything with the other. Whatever he did during the war, whatever Silas saw, it made Silas hate him. And Silas is not a man who hates easily." Eliza absorbed this. Her instincts had been right. There was danger here, and it wore a fine coat and a friendly smile. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet." Martha turned back to her bread. "You're marrying into a fight you didn't start. The question is whether you're strong enough to stand in it." Eliza thought of the road, the bandits, the 3 days of hell. She thought of the blood on her face and the dirt under her nails, and the way she had refused to stop breathing even when everything in her wanted to quit. "I'm strong enough." The next morning, Eliza insisted on working, Martha argued. Silas looked at her with those steady eyes and said nothing. But when Eliza asked for the ranch accounts, he brought them without comment. The ledger was a mess. Numbers scrawled in different hands, entries missing dates, expenses listed without categories. Eliza felt her fingers itch with the need to fix it. "Who's been keeping your books?" "Me mostly." Silas stood in the doorway watching her flip through pages. "When I remember." "This is chaos." "I know." Eliza looked up. "You're losing money. Here this shipment of feed was charged twice, and here you paid for lumber you never received." Silas crossed the room and looked over her shoulder. His nearness made her skin warm, but she kept her focus on the numbers. "How do you know I never received it?" "Because there's no record of it anywhere else. No inventory notation, no construction expense, nothing. Someone charged you for phantom lumber and pocketed the difference." Silas was quiet for a moment. "Who?" Eliza traced the entry with her finger. "The supplier's name is listed as Cates Lumber." "Is that?" "Virgil's company." Silas's voice went flat. "Son of a bitch." "There are more. At least 3 other charges that don't match up. I'd need to see your actual invoices to confirm, but if the pattern holds, you've been cheated out of at least $200. $200. In Wyoming territory, that was serious money. Enough to buy cattle, pay hands, survive a bad winter. Silas pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. For the first time since she had met him, he looked tired. "I'm not good with numbers," he said. "Never have been. I figured some things would slip through. Some things maybe, but not this. This is deliberate." "You're sure?" Eliza met his eyes. "I kept books for my father's print shop from the time I was 14. I know what honest mistakes look like. This isn't that." Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Can you fix it?" "I can keep it from happening again. The money that's already gone, you'd have to take that up with Virgil." "He'll deny it." "Of course he will. But now you know." Eliza tapped the ledger. "And knowledge is worth something." Silas looked at her, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. Not softness exactly, but recognition. like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Neither are you." The corner of his mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "I'll get those invoices." He left, and Eliza turned back to the ledger. Her heart was beating faster than it should. She told herself it was the satisfaction of finding a problem she could solve, but she knew that was not the whole truth. 3 days later, Eliza's bruises had faded from purple to yellow-green. Her ribs still ached, but she could breathe without pain. She had reorganized the ledger, cataloged the invoices, and documented every discrepancy she could find. The evidence against Kate's lumber was clear and damning. Silas looked at her work in silence. When he finished, he set down the papers and stood. "I'm going to town," he said, "to see the sheriff." "I'll come with you." "No." "Silas, you're still healing, and Virgil's got eyes everywhere. I don't want him knowing what we've found until I'm ready for him to know." Eliza wanted to argue, but she saw the set of his jaw and recognized the look. He was protecting her. She hated it, but she understood it. "Be careful," she said. He paused at the door. "I'm always careful." Then he was gone. Martha kept Eliza busy with small tasks: mending, sorting, organizing. But Eliza's mind stayed on Silas, and the evidence he carried, and the man he was going to confront. An hour passed, then 2. The afternoon stretched long. When the sound of hoofbeats finally reached the house, Eliza was on her feet before Martha could stop her. She moved to the window and saw Silas riding in, but he was not alone. Behind him rode 3 men. One wore a deputy's star. The other 2 had the look of hired hands, rough, hard-eyed, dangerous. "Martha." Martha came to stand beside her. Her face went pale. "That's Deputy Finch. But the other 2, they work for Virgil." Eliza's stomach dropped. "What's happening?" "They found out soon enough." Silas dismounted and walked toward the house, his face carved from stone. Deputy Finch followed, hat in hand, looking like a man who wished he were anywhere else. "Miss Wren." Finch would not meet her eyes. "I'm afraid there's been a complaint filed against you." "Against me. Virgil Cates is claiming you stole property from his office, a ledger, and a sum of money." Eliza's blood went cold. "That's a lie." "I'm sure it is, ma'am, but the law requires me to investigate." Finch shifted his weight. "I need to search the premises." "Like hell you do." Silas's voice was low and dangerous. "She hasn't left this ranch in 3 days. She couldn't have stolen anything from Virgil." "Mr. Cates says she had accomplices. He's accusing you too, Silas." The words hung in the air like a blade. Eliza saw it then. The trap. Virgil had seen her with his ledger. He knew they had found the evidence, so he was moving, first turning accusers into accused, putting them on the defensive before they could strike. "This is revenge," she said. "We found proof that his lumber company has been cheating Silas for years. He's trying to bury us before we can talk." Finch looked pained. "Ma'am, I believe you, but I have a warrant. If I don't execute it, I lose my badge, and whoever replaces me won't be as friendly." Martha stepped forward. "Search then. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find." They searched. Eliza stood rigid in the doorway, while Virgil's men went through the house with rough hands and rougher eyes. They opened drawers. They overturned mattresses. They pawed through Eliza's few possessions with obvious contempt. One of them held up the ledger. Silas's ledger, the one Eliza had been working on. "Found something." Finch examined it. "This is yours, Silas. You know damn well it is. Mr. Cates says a ledger was stolen from his office. This could be it." "That's my ranch ledger. My handwriting's on half those pages." "And the other half," Eliza stepped forward. "Mine. I've been organizing his accounts. Check the entries, they're dated from the last 3 days." Finch flipped through the pages, his brow furrowed. "She's right. These are recent." One of Virgil's men snatched the ledger from Finch's hands. "Don't matter. Mr. Cates wants them both brought in for questioning. Now hold on, Finch started. You got your orders, Deputy. We all do. The threat was clear. Finch was outmanned and outgunned. He looked at Silas with something like apology in his eyes. I'm sorry. I have to take you both in. Eliza felt the walls closing in. She had survived the road. She had survived the bandits. She had survived 3 days of hell. And now she was going to be dragged to jail on false charges by a corrupt man who smiled while he destroyed people. No. Wait. Everyone turned to look at her. Eliza took a breath. Her ribs ached. Her heart pounded. But her voice was steady. Deputy Finch, you said you have a warrant to search. Do you have a warrant to arrest? Finch blinked. A warrant requires specific evidence of a crime. Mr. Cates claims I stole property. What property? How I've been bedridden for 3 days with witnesses who can confirm I never left this ranch. Ma'am, if you arrest me without proper evidence, you're not upholding the law. You're breaking it. And when the circuit judge comes through next month, I will tell him exactly what happened here. Every detail, including the names of every man who participated in an unlawful arrest. Silence. One of Virgil's men stepped forward, face reddening. Listen here, you little... Enough. Finch held up his hand. His jaw was tight, but something had shifted in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or just the fear of a man who suddenly saw the ground crumbling beneath him. Miss Wren is right. I have a search warrant, not an arrest warrant. And we haven't found anything that matches the description of the stolen property. He looked at Virgil's men. We're done here. Mr. Cates won't like that. Then Mr. Cates can take it up with Judge Morrison. Until then, I'm done. The men exchanged dark looks. But they left. They mounted their horses and rode away, and Eliza watched them go with her heart still hammering against her cracked ribs. When the dust settled, Silas turned to her. Where did you learn to do that? Philadelphia. Eliza's legs were shaking. She sat down heavily in the nearest chair. My father printed legal documents. I read everything that came through his shop. You just faced down Virgil's men with nothing but words. I didn't have anything else. Silas knelt in front of her. His eyes searched her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. You could have stayed quiet. Let me handle it. Instead, you put yourself in Virgil's crosshairs. I was already in his crosshairs, the moment I found those discrepancies. Eliza met his gaze. I'm not going to hide from a man like him, and I'm not going to let him destroy you to cover his own crimes. Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. His fingers were rough and warm, and they curled around hers with a gentleness that made her throat tight. I don't know what I expected when I sent for a wife, he said. But it wasn't this. It wasn't you. Disappointed? No. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. The opposite. Martha cleared her throat from the doorway. Well, that's enough drama for one afternoon. Eliza, you need to eat. Silas, you need to figure out what Virgil's going to do next. The moment broke, but something remained. A thread stretched between them, fragile and new. Silas released her hand and stood. She's right. Virgil won't stop. Today was just the first move. What will he do? I don't know. Silas's jaw tightened. But I know him. He doesn't lose gracefully, and he doesn't forget. That night, Eliza lay awake in the big bed and listened to the house settle. She thought about Virgil Cates and his smooth smile and his dead eyes. She thought about the men he commanded and the power he wielded and the corruption that ran through his business like rot through wood. She thought about Silas sleeping in the barn loft to protect her reputation. A man who had taken her in without question, who had defended her without hesitation, who looked at her like she was something valuable, not because of what she could give him, but because of who she was. She had come to Wyoming looking for survival, a roof, a meal, a place to stand. She had found something else, A fight worth having. A man worth knowing. A home worth defending. The question was whether she was strong enough to keep it. Outside, the summer stars burned steady over the valley. The land held its secrets close. And somewhere in the darkness, a man named Virgil Cates was planning his next move. Eliza closed her eyes and made herself breathe. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new dangers, new choices. But tonight, she was safe. And she was not alone. That had to be enough. For now. 3 days passed without incident. 3 days of quiet work and careful watching. 3 days of waiting for Virgil Cates to make his next move. Eliza used the time well. She finished organizing the ledger. She documented every fraudulent charge from Cates Lumber. She wrote letters to suppliers in Cheyenne asking for copies of original invoices to verify her findings. Silas watched her work with something between admiration and disbelief. "You're building a case," he said one evening. "I'm building armor." Eliza did not look up from her writing. "When Virgil comes at us again, and he will, we need to be ready." "You sound certain." "I've known men like him." Her pen scratched across the paper. "They don't stop until they win, or until someone stops them. There's no middle ground." Silas leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What happened to you in Philadelphia before you came here?" The question caught her off guard. Eliza's hand stilled. "Why do you ask?" "Because you talk about survival like you've had practice. Because you look at trouble like an old friend. Because you don't flinch when most women would run." He paused. "I'm not asking to judge. I'm asking to understand." Eliza set down her pen. She turned to face him, and for a long moment she said nothing. The lamp flickered between them. "My father died when I was 19, she said finally. "He left debts we didn't know about. The creditors came within a week. They took the shop, the press, everything he'd built. My mother was already sick. The shock made it worse." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not finished." Eliza's voice was steady, but her hands trembled in her lap. "I found work at a dress shop. The owner was a man named Cornelius Webb. He was charming at first. Helpful. He gave me extra hours, advanced my pay, when my mother's medicine cost more than I earned." Silas's eyes darkened. He knew where this was going. One night he came to the shop after closing. He said I owed him. That kindness had a price. Eliza's jaw tightened. "I hit him with a pressing iron, broke his nose. He fired me the next morning and told every shop owner in Philadelphia that I was a thief." "Was he wrong to call you dangerous?" "No." Eliza met his gaze without flinching. "I am dangerous, to anyone who thinks they can take from me without consequence." Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he pushed off the doorframe and crossed the room. He knelt in front of her the way he had after the deputy left and took her hands in his. "I don't want anything from you that you don't want to give," he said. "I asked you here to be my partner. That means equals. That means your choices are yours. And if I choose to stay, then you stay, and we face whatever comes together." Eliza looked at this man, this quiet, stubborn, honorable man who had caught her when she fell and never once asked for payment. She had spent 5 years building walls around her heart. 5 years trusting no one. 5 years surviving alone. Maybe it was time to try something else. "Together," she said. Silas's hands tightened around hers. He leaned forward slow enough to give her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was gentle, brief. A question more than an answer. When he pulled back, his eyes searched her face. "Was that?" "Yes." Eliza's voice was barely a whisper. "That was right." The sound of hoofbeats shattered the moment. Silas was on his feet in an instant, moving to the window. Eliza followed. Through the glass, she saw riders approaching, at least 6, maybe more, carrying torches that blazed against the darkening sky. "Get Martha," Silas said. "Tell her to take you out the back." "I'm not leaving." "Eliza." I said I'm not leaving. She grabbed his arm. What's happening? Before he could answer, a voice rang out from the yard. Silas Drummond, come out and face your judgment. Eliza's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. She had heard it 3 days ago in this very room, smooth and pleasant and utterly without mercy. Virgil Cates. Silas moved to the door, but Eliza blocked his path. Don't, it's a trap. I know it's a trap, but if I don't go out, they'll burn this place down with all of us in it. He touched her face just once. Stay inside, whatever happens. He stepped onto the porch before she could argue. Eliza ran to the window. Martha appeared beside her, face pale, a shotgun clutched in her hands. Lord help us, Martha whispered. Outside, Virgil sat astride a black horse, surrounded by his men. The torchlight made his face look demonic, all sharp angles and dancing shadows. Behind him, more riders spread out, circling the house. Silas. Virgil's voice was almost friendly. I'm disappointed. I gave you every chance to do this the easy way. There's no easy way with you, Virgil. There never was. That's not true. I offered to buy your land. Fair price. Clean deal. You refused. Virgil spread his hands. Now we do it the hard way. You mean the illegal way? I mean the necessary way. Virgil's smile faded. You know what's coming, Silas. The railroad, the growth. In 5 years, this valley will be worth more than everything either of us has ever owned. I won't let you stand in the way of that. This is my land, my home. You don't get to take it just because you want it. I don't just want it, I need it. Virgil leaned forward in his saddle. And I always get what I need. Like you needed to burn that village in '64? The words hit like bullets. Virgil's face went rigid. Eliza pressed closer to the window. Village. What village? Careful, Silas. Virgil's voice dropped to something cold and deadly. Some things are better left buried. Maybe I'm tired of burying things. Then maybe you're tired of breathing. One of Virgil's men raised a rifle. Eliza's heart stopped. Lower your weapon, Silas said. This is between me and him. No. Virgil shook his head slowly. This stopped being between us the moment you found a woman clever enough to threaten me. She's part of this now, and so is everyone in that house. You touch her and you'll die like a hero. Virgil laughed. That's not how this works, Silas. You don't get a noble death. You get a tragic accident. A fire that started in the barn and spread too fast. A terrible loss that the whole town will mourn. He snapped his fingers. 2 of his men dismounted and moved toward the barn with their torches. No! Silas lunged off the porch. Eliza was out the door before Martha could stop her. She ran. Her ribs screamed. Her legs burned. But she ran straight toward the men with the torches, straight toward the fire that would destroy everything. Stop! The men turned. Eliza grabbed a pitchfork from beside the barn door and held it like a weapon. Touch that barn, and I'll gut you where you stand. One of the men laughed. Little lady, you can barely hold that thing. Try me. He stepped forward. Eliza thrust the pitchfork at his face. He jerked back, barely avoiding the tines, and his torch fell into the dirt. You crazy! A gunshot split the air. Everyone froze. Deputy Finch rode into the yard with 4 men behind him. Real deputies this time, not Virgil's hired thugs. They carried rifles and badges, and the weight of actual law. That's enough. Finch's voice carried over the chaos. Virgil Cates, you and your men are under arrest. Virgil's face twisted. On what charges? Arson. Attempted murder. Fraud. Finch dismounted and walked toward him, steady and sure. Miss Wren sent copies of her evidence to the U.S. Marshal's office in Cheyenne 3 days ago. We received word this afternoon that a federal investigation has been opened. Eliza felt her legs go weak. The letters. She had sent the letters. Virgil's eyes found hers across the yard. The hatred in them was pure and absolute. You. His voice was barely human. You did this. I did what you taught me. Eliza kept her voice steady. I protected what was mine. For a moment she thought Virgil would charge at her. His horse stamped and snorted. His men shifted uncertain, looking at their leader for guidance. Then Virgil laughed. It was a terrible sound, hollow and bitter, and full of broken promises. You think this is over? He looked at Silas, then back at Eliza. This isn't over. This will never be over. I'll hang before I let the two of you take what's mine. Virgil. Finch raised his rifle. Dismount. Now. For one long moment, Virgil did not move. Then slowly, he swung down from his horse. His men followed, dropping weapons, raising hands. The deputies moved in. Irons clicked. Horses stamped. It was over. Eliza dropped the pitchfork. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely stand. Then Silas was there, pulling her into his arms, holding her against his chest. She felt his heartbeat rapid and strong, and she closed her eyes. You sent the letters, he said. You planned this. I told you. Her voice was muffled against his shirt. I was building armor. His arms tightened. You saved us. We saved each other. They stood like that while the deputies led Virgil and his men away. Martha came out to the porch, shotgun still in hand, and watched with grim satisfaction. Deputy Finch approached, hat in hand. Miss Wren. Mr. Drummond. He looked exhausted but relieved. The marshal will want statements. Tomorrow if you're able. We'll be there, Silas said. Finch nodded. He hesitated, then added, That was brave what you did. Both of you. Not many people stand up to men like Virgil Cates. Someone had to, Eliza said. Finch tipped his hat and rode away. The yard fell quiet. The torches had burned down to embers. Martha broke the silence. Well, I don't know about you two, but I need a drink. Despite everything, Eliza laughed. It hurt her ribs, but she didn't care. Inside, they sat around the table with glasses of whiskey, even Eliza, though she only sipped. The warmth spread through her chest and loosened the knot of tension she had carried for days. What did he mean? She asked. About a village in '64. Silas stared into his glass. The lamplight carved deep shadows in his face. It was near the end of the war. We were stationed in Virginia hunting Confederate supplies. Virgil was my commanding officer. He paused. We came to a village, small place, farms and families, no military value at all. What happened? Virgil said they were hiding rebels. He ordered us to burn it. Silas's voice went flat. There were no rebels, just people, women, children. He burned it anyway. Eliza's stomach turned. Did you? I refused. I pulled men back. I tried to stop it. His jaw tightened. It wasn't enough. Half the village burned before the colonel arrived and relieved Virgil of command. He should have been court-martialed. He should have been hanged. But his family had money and connections. They buried it, transferred him out, changed the records. Silas finally looked at her. I was the only witness who survived. Everyone else is dead or scattered. That's why he wants you gone. That's why he wants me dead. Silas drained his whiskey. I've been a threat to him for 12 years. As long as I'm alive, there's someone who knows what he really is. Martha set down her glass. So what now? He's in custody, but his family will hire lawyers. Men like him don't stay locked up forever. Now we make sure he does. Eliza leaned forward. The marshal's investigation will dig up the fraud. But we need more. We need witnesses who remember the village. Records. Anything that proves what he did in Virginia. Those records were destroyed. Then we find people who remember. Survivors, other soldiers. Eliza's mind was already working. Where is the colonel who relieved him? Is he still alive? Silas looked at her like he was seeing a stranger. I don't know. I lost track of him after the war. Then we find him. Eliza stood. We have time. Virgil won't go to trial for months. That's months to build a case so strong that no amount of money or connections can save him. You'd do that for me." Eliza turned to face him. "I'd do it for us, for this place, for everyone he's ever hurt." She paused. "And because I don't run from fights. Not anymore." The night deepened. Martha retired to her room. Silas and Eliza sat on the porch watching the stars. "I wrote you those letters because I was lonely," Silas said. "I thought I just needed help with the ranch, someone to share the work. And now I think I needed you." He reached for her hand. "Not for the work, for everything else." Eliza laced her fingers through his. "I came here expecting a transaction, a roof for a ring. I didn't expect to care. Do you? I wouldn't have faced down those men if I didn't." Silas turned to her. In the starlight, his face was open in a way she had never seen, vulnerable, hopeful, afraid. "I want to marry you," he said. "Not because of the arrangement, not because of what you can do for the ranch, because I want to wake up every morning and know you're beside me." Eliza's heart swelled. She had spent so long being practical, so long keeping emotion at arm's length. But here now, with this man, practicality felt like a lie she had told herself to survive. "Then marry me," she said. Silas kissed her again, longer this time, deeper. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Tomorrow," he said. "We'll go to the minister. Tomorrow's the marshal. Day after then." Eliza smiled. "Day after." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the sky lighten at the edges. Somewhere out there, Virgil Cates sat in a cell, planning revenge. Somewhere out there, dangers waited that they could not yet see. But tonight, they had won. The next morning brought complications. Deputy Finch arrived before breakfast with news that made Eliza's blood run cold. "Virgil's lawyer got here at dawn," he said. "He's claiming false arrest. Says the whole thing was a setup to steal his land." "That's insane," Eliza said. "That's money." Finch looked uncomfortable. "The judge set bail. Virgil paid it an hour ago. He's free." Silas grabbed his coat. "Where is he?" "That's the thing. Nobody knows. He paid the bail and disappeared. His men, too." Finch shifted his weight. "I'm posting deputies around your property, but I don't have enough men to cover everything." "He's coming for us." "Probably, but I don't know when or how." Finch met Silas's eyes. "Watch your back, both of you." After he left, the house felt smaller. Martha checked the windows. Silas loaded rifles and positioned them around the house. Eliza organized the evidence again, making sure every copy was secure. "We need to move," she said. "Get to Cheyenne. Talk to the marshal in person. If we leave, Virgil burns this place to the ground. If we stay, he kills us. He can try." "Silas." Eliza grabbed his arm. "This isn't courage. It's stubbornness. We can rebuild a house. We can't rebuild us." He looked at her for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. "You're right. I hate it, but you're right." They packed quickly, evidence, weapons, supplies for the road. Martha agreed to stay with neighbors in town. The plan was simple: ride hard for Cheyenne, present the evidence, and request protection until Virgil was back in custody. They were loading the wagon when the shot rang out. Silas spun. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. He staggered, but didn't fall. "Get down!" He shoved Eliza behind the wagon. More shots. Splinters flew from the wood above their heads. Eliza heard horses approaching fast. "How many?" she gasped. "Too many." Silas pressed a rifle into her hands. "Can you shoot?" "My father taught me." "Then cover me." He broke left, firing as he ran. Eliza popped up from behind the wagon and squeezed the trigger. The kick slammed into her shoulder. A man fell from his horse. More riders emerged. Eliza counted 6, 7. Too many. "Fall back." Silas was at the porch, waving her toward him. "Get inside." She ran. Bullets whined past her ears. She dove through the doorway and rolled, coming up with the rifle ready. Silas slammed the door and barred it. Blood dripped from his shoulder, but his eyes were clear. "How bad?" Eliza asked. "Through and through, missed the bone." He grabbed another rifle from the rack. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they surround us. And then we hold until Finch hears the shooting and brings help." "What if he doesn't hear?" Silas met her eyes. "Then we die fighting." Eliza should have been afraid. Part of her was the part that remembered the road, the bandits, the endless hours of helpless terror. But that fear was smaller now, quieter, pushed aside by something stronger. She had found something worth dying for. Now she had to figure out how to live for it instead. The firing stopped. A voice called from outside. "Silas, you're outgunned and outmanned. Come out now, and I'll let the women go." "Virgil." Silas moved to the window. "You're a liar, Virgil. You always have been." "Maybe, but I'm also a man who keeps his promises. You come out, I'll make it quick. Stay in there and I'll burn you out like rats." Eliza touched Silas's arm. "Don't." "I'm not going to." He looked at her. "But I need to buy time. Keep him talking." "How?" "I'll tell him the truth." Silas's jaw tightened. "About Virginia, about what I saw. He'll shoot you. Maybe, maybe not." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "If I don't come back, the evidence goes to the marshal. You finish what we started." "Silas?" But he was already opening the door. Eliza watched from the window, rifle ready, heart pounding. Silas stepped onto the porch, hands raised. Virgil sat on his horse in the center of the yard, flanked by his men. "That's close enough," Virgil said. "I'm not armed. I don't care." Virgil cocked his pistol. "Last words, Silas. Make them count." Silas stood tall. "I know why you want me dead, Virgil. It's not the land. It's not the water rights. It's what I saw in Virginia. What you did to those people." Something flickered in Virgil's eyes. "Careful." "No, I'm done being careful." Silas's voice rose loud enough for every man in the yard to hear. Virgil Cates ordered the burning of a civilian village in 1864. Women and children died screaming while he watched and did nothing. The army covered it up. His family paid off the witnesses, but I saw it. I remember. Murmuring among the men. Some of them were young, too young to have served in the war. They looked at Virgil with new eyes. "Lies," Virgil spat. "This man is a liar and a thief." "Then kill me." Silas spread his arms. "Shoot me right here and prove me wrong." Virgil raised his pistol. His hand was steady, but his face was twisted with rage. "You think this changes anything? My men are loyal to me. They'll believe what I tell them to believe." "Will they?" Silas looked at the riders. "You boys want to follow a man who murdered women and children, a man who lies to everyone, including you." "Don't listen to him." Virgil's voice cracked. He's telling the truth." Every head turned. A rider approached from the road. A woman sitting tall in the saddle, face set with grim determination. Eliza's heart stopped. She knew that face. The woman from the mercantile. The one who had smiled at her on the street. Nettie Cates. Virgil's sister. Nettie rode into the yard and stopped between Silas and her brother. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "I was 18 years old," she said. "When you came home from the war, you told me stories about your heroism, about battles won and lives saved. I believed you." She turned to face Virgil fully. "I believed every lie. Nettie, I found the letters, Virgil, the ones you kept in your desk, the ones from men who were there." Her voice cracked. "They begged you to stop, to spare the children. You burned them anyway, and then you burned their letters." "Those were private. They were evidence." Nettie looked at the men around her. "My brother is a murderer. He has been lying to this town, to our family, to everyone for 12 years. If you ride with him today, you ride with a war criminal." Silence. One of the men lowered his rifle. Then another. Then 3 more. Virgil's face went white with fury. "You would betray your own blood. You betrayed yourself." Nettie's eyes blazed. "The moment you put profit above humanity. The moment you decided that power mattered more than people." She turned her horse toward the road. "I'm done protecting you, Virgil. You're on your own." She rode away without looking back. Virgil watched her go. His men shifted uncertain. Half of them had already holstered their weapons. Then Deputy Finch crested the hill with a dozen men behind him. "Virgil Cates!" Finch's voice thundered across the yard. "You're under arrest for attempted murder, arson, and conspiracy. Surrender now, or we open fire." Virgil looked at his remaining men. 3, maybe 4, still willing to fight. Against a dozen deputies with rifles aimed at his heart. For one terrible moment, Eliza thought he would do it anyway. That he would go out in a blaze of hatred and take as many people with him as he could. But Virgil Cates was many things. Stupid was not one of them. He dropped his pistol in the dirt. "This isn't over," he said. Finch dismounted and approached with irons. "Yes, it is." The deputies moved in. The remaining men surrendered. Virgil was pulled from his horse and bound. Eliza ran from the house to Silas's side. She grabbed him before he could fall. "Your shoulder. It can wait." He pulled her close with his good arm. "It's over. It's really over." Eliza held him while the deputies loaded Virgil into a wagon. She held him while Martha returned from the neighbors with tears on her cheeks. She held him while the summer sun climbed higher and the world settled back into something like peace. Nettie Cates had vanished down the road, but her words remained echoing in the silence. The truth had finally won. Now they had to figure out what came next. Doc Harrison worked on Silas's shoulder for nearly an hour. Eliza sat in the corner of the cramped office, hands clenched in her lap, watching every movement of the needle and thread. She had seen blood before. She had seen pain. But watching Silas grit his teeth against the stitches made her chest ache in a way she could not name. "Through and through," Doc Harrison said finally. "You're lucky. Another inch left and it would have shattered the bone." "Don't feel lucky," Silas muttered. "That's the shock talking." The doctor wrapped the wound with clean bandages and stepped back. "Rest. No heavy lifting for at least 2 weeks. And for God's sake, don't get shot again." "I'll try." Eliza helped Silas to his feet. He leaned on her more than he probably wanted to, but she did not comment. Some things did not need words. Outside, Deputy Finch waited with the wagon. His face was grave. "Virgil's locked up tight this time. Federal marshal's on his way from Cheyenne. Should be here by tomorrow night." "And his men?" Eliza asked. "Scattered. Most of them turned on him the moment Nettie spoke. The ones who didn't are in cells next to him." Finch paused. "He's asking to speak with you, Silas." "Oui." Silas stiffened. "Why?" "Didn't say. Just keeps demanding to see you. Says he has something you need to hear." Eliza's stomach tightened. "Don't go." "I have to." Silas turned to her and his eyes were tired but determined. "If he knows something, if there's more to this, I need to hear it. It's a trap. He's trying to get in your head." "Maybe. But I've spent 12 years running from what happened in Virginia. 12 years carrying it alone." He touched her face. "I'm done running." Eliza wanted to argue. She wanted to grab him and shake him and make him see that Virgil Cates was poison, that nothing good could come from confronting him. But she saw the set of his jaw and recognized the look. This was not stubbornness. This was something older, something that needed resolution. "Then I'm coming with you." "Eliza, non-negotiable." Silas studied her face. Then slowly he nodded. The jail was small and smelled of sweat and desperation. Virgil sat in the back cell, wrists shackled, clothes torn. He looked up when they entered, and his lips twisted into something that was not quite a smile. "Silas, you brought your woman. How touching." "You asked to see me." Silas's voice was flat. "Talk." Virgil leaned back against the wall. Even in chains, he carried himself like a man in control. It made Eliza's skin crawl. "I've been thinking," Virgil said, "about Virginia, about what you saw." "I know what I saw." "Do you?" Virgil tilted his head. "You were what 20A boy playing soldier. You didn't understand the stakes." "I understood enough. Women screaming, children burning, you standing there watching." "I was following orders." "Whose orders?" Virgil's smile widened. "Now that's the question, isn't it? You always assumed I acted alone, that I was some monster making decisions without authorization." He leaned forward. "But what if I told you there was someone above me, someone who gave the command and then buried the evidence?" Eliza felt Silas go rigid beside her. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Think about it, Silas. I was a captain, a nobody. You really think I had the power to cover up a massacre by myself, to buy off witnesses, destroy records, transfer entire units?" Virgil shook his head. "Someone helped me. Someone powerful. Someone who's still powerful today." "Who?" "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Virgil's eyes gleamed. "But the proof exists. I kept it. Insurance in case my protector ever decided I was more liability than asset." "Where?" "That's the thing." Virgil spread his shackled hands. "I'll tell you, but only if you help me." Silas's laugh was harsh and humorless. "Help you? After everything you've done?" "I'm offering you the truth, Silas. The whole truth. Names, dates, documents. Everything you need to expose the real monster behind Virginia." Virgil's voice dropped. "All you have to do is get me out of here." "Go to hell." "I probably will, but think about what I'm offering. 12 years you've carried this weight. 12 years of nightmares and guilt. I'm giving you the chance to share the burden." Virgil's smile turned cruel. "Unless you don't actually want justice. Unless revenge on me is enough to satisfy you." Eliza stepped forward. "Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you." Virgil's eyes shifted to her. "Miss Wren, the clever little mail-order bride who thought she could bring me down with a ledger and some letters?" His voice hardened. "You think you've won? You've won nothing. I'm one man. The rot goes deeper than you can imagine." "Then let it rot." Eliza kept her voice steady. "You'll die in prison either way. Why should we help you?" "Because I'm not the worst thing out there." Virgil looked at Silas. "You know I'm not. You saw what I was capable of, yes, but you also saw me follow orders." "Whose orders, Silas? Who made me what I am?" Silas was silent for a long moment. Eliza watched his face, saw the conflict playing out behind his eyes. Part of him wanted to believe. Part of him needed there to be someone else to blame, someone bigger, someone who could carry a share of the horror he had witnessed. But another part, the part Eliza loved, knew better. "It doesn't matter," Silas said finally. "Whoever gave the orders, you're the one who carried them out. You're the one who watched those people burn and did nothing to stop it. That's on you, Virgil. That will always be on you." Virgil's smile faded. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Silas turned toward the door. "Goodbye, Virgil. I hope you find peace, but I doubt you will." They left the jail without looking back. Outside, Eliza grabbed Silas's hand and held it tight. He was shaking. "You did the right thing," she said. "Did I?" His voice was rough. "What if he's telling the truth? What if there's someone else out there who needs to answer for Virginia? Then we find them, but not his way. Not by making deals with devils." Eliza squeezed his fingers. "We do it right, or we don't do it at all." Silas looked at her. Something shifted in his eyes, the tension easing, the weight lifting just a little. When did you get so wise? I was born this way. You just weren't paying attention. He almost smiled. It was enough. The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. The federal marshal arrived, a stern man named Crawford, with gray in his beard and steel in his eyes. He took statements from everyone: Silas, Eliza, Martha, Deputy Finch, even Nettie Cates, who had returned to town with a lawyer and a stack of documents from her brother's private office. The evidence was overwhelming. Fraud, theft, attempted murder, conspiracy. But the most damning testimony came from Nettie herself. I found letters, she told Marshal Crawford. Dozens of them, from men who served with Virgil during the war. They begged him for money, for silence, for protection. He kept them all. Her voice cracked. He was proud of them, like trophies. Crawford examined the letters carefully. These mention a village, a massacre. Yes. And you're willing to testify to their authenticity? Nettie lifted her chin. I'll testify to everything, whatever it takes. Eliza watched her from across the room. This woman had grown up with a monster for a brother. She had believed his lies, defended his name, built her life on a foundation of denial. Now she was tearing it all down, brick by brick, with nothing but the truth. It took courage. The kind of courage Eliza understood. After the interview, Eliza found Nettie on the porch of the marshal's temporary office. She was staring at nothing, hands clasped in her lap. May I sit? Nettie looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry. If you want. Eliza sat beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. Neither. I don't expect you to forgive me, Nettie said finally. My brother tried to kill you, tried to destroy everything you and Silas built. I should have stopped him years ago. Could you have? I don't know. Nettie's voice was hollow. I was 17 when he came home from the war. He was a hero to me. Our father had died, our mother was ill. Virgil took care of everything. How could I question him? You couldn't. Not then. Eliza chose her words carefully. But you questioned him when it mattered. You spoke the truth when staying silent would have been easier. Too late. Maybe. But late is better than never. Eliza turned to face her. What will you do now? Nettie was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. The ranch is his, will be seized probably as evidence. I have a little money of my own, enough to start over somewhere. Stay. Nettie blinked. What? Stay in Willow Creek. This town needs people who are willing to speak hard truths, people who choose right over easy. Eliza paused. Silas and I are going to need help rebuilding. The ranch is more work than 2 people can handle. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a chance. What you do with it is up to you. Nettie's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back fiercely. Why? After everything my brother did, why would you help me? Because you're not your brother. Eliza stood. That's the whole point. We don't have to be what our families made us. We can choose who we become. She left Nettie on the porch and walked back to the wagon where Silas waited. He was leaning against the wheel, favoring his wounded shoulder, watching her approach. What was that about? Giving someone a second chance. Silas raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He helped her into the wagon and climbed up beside her. As they drove out of town, Eliza felt something settle in her chest. Something that had been tight and anxious for days was finally beginning to ease. They had won. Against all odds, against a powerful enemy, against the weight of history and lies, they had won. Now they had to figure out how to live with victory. The wedding happened 3 days later. It was small, intimate. The minister from Red Ridge came out to the ranch and performed the ceremony under a clear summer sky. Martha stood as witness. Deputy Finch came with his wife. Nettie was there too, standing slightly apart, uncertain of her place, but present nonetheless. Eliza wore a simple dress, not the one she had lost on the road, but a new one Martha had helped her make. Blue cotton with white trim. Nothing fancy. But when she walked towards Silas, his eyes told her she could have been wearing silk and diamonds and still not looked more beautiful. The vows were plain and spoken steady. "I promise to be your partner," Eliza said. "In work and hardship, in everything. I promise to stand beside you, not behind you. I promise to speak the truth even when it's hard, and to listen even when I don't want to hear." Silas's voice was rough with emotion. "I promise to protect you, not because you're weak, but because you're mine. I promise to respect your mind as much as your heart. I promise to build something with you that's worth keeping." The rings were simple bands. Martha had found them in town, not gold, but silver polished until they gleamed. When Silas slid the ring onto Eliza's finger, she felt something click into place. Not just the metal, but something deeper. A lock turning. A door opening. A life beginning. "You may kiss your bride," the minister said. Silas cupped her face in his hands and kissed her like a man who had finally found home. Applause broke the silence. Martha wiped her eyes. Even Finch looked moved. Eliza pulled back and laughed, and the sound surprised her. She had not laughed like that in years. Free, joyful, unguarded. The celebration was modest food and drink and quiet conversation. As the sun began to set, the guests drifted away. Martha announced she would stay in the spare room for one more night, then return to her boarding house in the morning. "You two don't need a chaperone anymore," she said with a knowing smile. "But if you need anything, you know where to find me." Nettie left with Finch and his wife, who had offered her a room until she got settled. She paused at the door and looked at Eliza. "Thank you," she said. "For everything. Thank yourself. You made the choice." Nettie nodded once and was gone. Finally, the house was quiet. Silas and Eliza stood on the porch watching the last light fade from the sky. Her hand found his. His fingers curled around hers. "We're married," she said. "We are." That still feels strange to say. Silas turned to look at her. "Good strange or bad strange?" "Good." Eliza smiled. "Definitely good." He pulled her closer. His wounded shoulder protested, but he ignored it. "I have something for you, a wedding gift." "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small wooden box. "I made it myself. Before you came. I didn't know who I was making it for, but I knew I wanted to give it to the woman I married." Eliza opened the box. Inside lay a ring, not the silver wedding band, but something different. A thin band, carved from pale wood, polished smooth with tiny flowers, etched around its circumference. "It's cottonwood," Silas said. "From the tree where we got married. I carved it last winter when I was loneliest. I told myself whoever wore this ring would be someone I chose. Someone who chose me." Eliza's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. She slipped the wooden ring onto her finger beside the silver band. "It's perfect. It's just wood. It's more than that." She looked up at him. "It's a promise, and I intend to keep it." Silas kissed her again, deeper, this time longer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Come inside," he said. "I want to show you something else." He led her through the house to the main bedroom, their bedroom now. The room where she had spent her first nights healing alone and afraid. On the desk by the window sat a new ledger. Blank pages waiting to be filled. "For our life," Silas said. "Whatever we build together, we write it down, so we never forget." Eliza ran her fingers over the leather cover. She thought about everything that had led her here, the loss, the pain, the long journey west, the blood and fear and hope. She thought about what came next. "I have something for you too," she said. "Not a thing, a truth." "What truth?" Eliza turned to face him. When I got on that stagecoach in Philadelphia, I was running away. From debt, from shame, from everything I had been. I thought coming here would let me start over, become someone new. And I was wrong. She stepped closer. I didn't need to become someone new. I needed to find someone who saw who I already was and thought that was enough. Silas's eyes softened. You're more than enough. So are you. Eliza touched his face. We both came to this place broken. We both thought we had to fix ourselves before we could be loved. But that's not how it works. How does it work? We fix each other. She smiled. A little at a time, for the rest of our lives. Silas pulled her into his arms. Outside, the summer stars emerged one by one. The land stretched endlessly in every direction, wild and unforgiving, and full of promise. Tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges, new joys and sorrows they could not yet imagine. But tonight, they had each other. And that was everything. 3 months had passed since the wedding. 3 months of building healing and learning what it meant to share a life. Eliza stood at the desk by the window, pen in hand, ledger open before her. The numbers were clean now. Organized, categorized, balanced. No more phantom charges, no more missing entries. The ranch accounts told the story of a place coming back to life. Silas came up behind her and rested his chin on her shoulder. His wound had healed to a pale scar, a reminder of battles won. You're working again. Someone has to keep us solvent. We're more than solvent. He turned her to face him. The cattle sale went through. The railroad contract is signed. We're doing better than I ever dreamed. Dreams change, Eliza said. So do nightmares. She was thinking about Virgil. The trial had ended a week ago. Federal Court, Cheyenne. Marshall Crawford had built an airtight case, fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. But the war crimes had been the knife that twisted deepest. Nettie's letters, Silas's testimony. The colonel who had relieved Virgil of command, found at last in a boarding house in St. Louis, still carrying the weight of what he had witnessed. Guilty on all counts. Virgil Cates would hang in the spring. You're thinking about him, Silas said. I'm thinking about what he said, in the jail. Eliza met his eyes. About someone above him, someone who gave the orders. He was lying, trying to save himself. Probably. She paused. But what if he wasn't? Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. I've been thinking about it too, every night since the trial. He ran a hand through his hair. Virgil was a captain, young, ambitious. The kind of man who followed orders because he wanted to climb. He never would have done something that big without authorization. So there was someone. Maybe, but whoever it was, they covered their tracks better than Virgil did. The records are gone. The witnesses are dead or disappeared. His jaw tightened. We could spend years chasing ghosts and never find the truth. Eliza knelt beside him. She took his hands in hers. Then we don't chase ghosts. We build something instead. She waited until he met her eyes. Virgil wanted to destroy everything we had. He failed. The best revenge isn't digging up old graves, it's making sure what we build outlasts everything he tried to tear down. Silas looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly the tension drained from his shoulders. When did you get so wise? I married well. He laughed a real laugh, surprised and warm. It was a sound Eliza had learned to treasure. She heard it more often now, but it still felt like a gift. There's something I need to tell you, Silas said. I was going to wait, but... Tell me now. He hesitated. I got a letter yesterday. From the War Department. Eliza's stomach tightened. What kind of letter? They're reopening the investigation into the Virginia massacre. Officially this time. A congressman got involved, someone who lost family in that village. Silas swallowed. They want me to testify again, in Washington. The words hung between them like a held breath. When? Next month. That's barely 4 weeks. I know. His grip on her hands tightened. I'll be gone at least a month, maybe longer. It's a lot to ask. Don't. Eliza squeezed back. Don't apologize for doing the right thing. You'd be alone here. With the ranch, the accounts, everything. I won't be alone. Nettie's been helping with the books. Martha comes by every week. Deputy Finch checks in more often than he needs to. She managed a smile. Besides, I ran a print shop at 19. I think I can handle a cattle ranch. Silas stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me now. He pulled her onto his lap and kissed her deep and slow and full of everything words couldn't say. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Come with me, he said suddenly. What? To Washington. Come with me. His eyes were bright with something she had never seen before. Hope, maybe. Or faith. I don't want to do this without you. I don't want to do anything without you ever again. Eliza thought about the ranch. The work waiting to be done. The risks of leaving everything in other hands. Then she thought about Silas alone in Washington, facing the ghosts of his past, reliving horrors she could only imagine. Yes. The word came out before she could second-guess it. Yes, I'll come with you. Silas's face transformed. The worry lines eased. The shadows in his eyes retreated. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She touched his face. We said we'd face everything together. This is everything. They left for Washington 2 weeks later. Martha agreed to oversee the house. Nettie took charge of the accounts, a responsibility that seemed to give her purpose a reason to stay when everything else had fallen apart. Deputy Finch promised to check on the property and send word if anything went wrong. The journey east was long and exhausting. Trains and stages and endless miles of country Eliza had never seen. But Silas was beside her through all of it, and that made the discomfort bearable. Washington was nothing like she expected. The city buzzed with energy and ambition, with power brokers and politicians and people chasing dreams too big for ordinary places. Eliza felt small here, in a way she never had in Philadelphia or Wyoming. These were the halls where decisions were made that shaped nations, where men in fine coats determined the fates of millions. The hearing took place in a marble building that smelled of ink and old money. Silas sat before a panel of congressmen, generals, and lawyers. Eliza watched from the gallery, hands clenched in her lap, heart pounding. He told his story. The village. The orders. The screaming. The fire. His voice broke only once when he described a child running from a burning house reaching for help that never came. The room went silent. Even the stenographer stopped writing. When it was over, the chairman thanked Silas for his service to truth and justice. He used words like courage, and honor, and sacrifice. They were good words, important words. But Eliza saw the toll they took. She saw Silas age 10 years in that chair, reliving horrors he had tried to bury. That night in their hotel room, he shattered. I couldn't save them. His voice was raw, broken. I tried. God, I tried. But they burned and I couldn't. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. Eliza held him while he shook. That's not the point. The point is, you tried. You stood up when everyone else looked away. That matters. Does it? Those people are still dead. That village is still gone. Nothing I say changes that. No, but what you said today will make sure it never happens again. The truth is out now. The men responsible will answer for it. She pulled back to look at his face. You gave those people justice, Silas. That's not nothing. That's everything. He cried. She had never seen him cry before. He buried his face in her shoulder and let 20 years of grief pour out in a flood of tears and choking sobs. Eliza held him through all of it. She stroked his hair and whispered words she wasn't sure he heard, and let him break so he could begin to heal. When the storm passed, he lay still in her arms, spent and empty. "I don't know who I am without this," he whispered. "I've been carrying it so long. I don't know who I'll be when it's finally gone." "You'll be whoever you choose to be." Eliza kissed his forehead. "And I'll be right beside you while you figure it out." The investigation took another 3 weeks. More testimonies, more documents unearthed from dusty archives. The congressman leading the inquiry was relentless, a man who had lost a sister in that village and spent 20 years seeking answers. In the end, they found what they were looking for. Colonel James Whitmore, Virgil's commanding officer during the war, a man who had given the order and then buried the evidence so deep even Virgil didn't know how far up it went. Whitmore was 83 years old now, living in a grand house in Boston on money stained with blood. When the marshals came for him, he did not resist. He simply sat in his study and waited as if he had known this day would come eventually. He died before he could stand trial. Heart failure, the doctors said, but Eliza thought it was something else, something closer to justice. The news reached them on the train back to Wyoming. Silas read the telegram twice, then folded it carefully and tucked it into his coat. "It's over," Eliza said. "No." He looked out the window at the endless prairie rolling past. "It's not over. It will never be over for the people who died. But maybe now they can rest." He turned to her. "And maybe I can too." They arrived home to find the ranch in better shape than they had left it. Nettie had kept the books immaculate. Martha had organized the house. The cattle had fattened on summer grass, and the new hands Finch had hired were working out well. But there was something else waiting for them. A letter from Philadelphia. Eliza recognized the handwriting immediately. Her hands trembled as she tore open the envelope. "What is it?" Silas asked. Eliza read the letter twice before she could speak. "It's from my mother's lawyer." Her voice was barely a whisper. "She left me something. I didn't know. I thought all the debts were paid, but she had a separate account. Money she'd been saving for years. Money my father never knew about." Eliza looked up stunned. "She left it all to me, $1,500. Silas's eyes widened. "That's enough to pay off any remaining debts. Enough to expand the ranch. Enough to—" Eliza stopped. "Enough to build something real." Silas pulled her into his arms. "We already have something real. I know. But now we have choices. Options. We're not just surviving anymore." She pulled back to look at him. "We're living." That night they sat on the porch and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. The summer was fading, but the warmth lingered. "I want children," Eliza said suddenly. Silas turned to look at her. "You do." "I didn't think I did. When I got on that stagecoach in Philadelphia, I was thinking about survival, shelter, food. I wasn't thinking about the future." She reached for his hand. "But now I am. Now I want everything. Everything. A family. A legacy. Something that outlasts us." She met his eyes. "I want to fill this house with children who know they're loved, who never have to wonder if they belong." Silas's eyes glistened. "I want that too. I've wanted it for years. I just never thought I'd find someone to want it with." "You found me." "No." He lifted her hand to his lips. "You found me. On that platform covered in blood and dust, refusing to fall. You found me, Eliza, and you saved me. We saved each other." "Yeah." His voice was rough with emotion. "I guess we did." The months that followed brought changes Eliza could never have predicted. Nettie became a permanent fixture at the ranch, managing the accounts with a precision that rivaled Eliza's own. The guilt she carried for her brother's crimes slowly transformed into purpose, a determination to build something good on the ashes of destruction. Deputy Finch was elected sheriff when the old one retired. He ran the town with fairness and integrity, and he never forgot the woman who had stood up to Virgil Cates with nothing but words and courage. Martha opened a school in Willow Creek. She taught reading and writing and arithmetic to the children of ranchers and miners and railroad workers. Eliza helped when she could, sharing the education her father had given her with a new generation. And in the spring, when the wildflowers bloomed across the valley, Eliza told Silas she was pregnant. He dropped the bridle he was holding and stood frozen, mouth open, eyes wide. "Pregnant?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "Doc Harrison confirmed it yesterday." For a moment, he didn't move. Then a sound escaped him, half laugh, half sob, and he crossed the barn in 3 strides and swept her into his arms. "Careful," she laughed. "The baby. The baby will be fine. I'll be careful forever from now on." He set her down gently, then knelt and pressed his face to her belly. "Hello in there. I'm your father. I'm going to spoil you rotten, and your mother's going to pretend to disapprove." "I will not pretend." "You absolutely will." He looked up at her with tears streaming down his face. "We made a person, Eliza. We made a whole new person. We did." She ran her fingers through his hair. "And we're going to teach them everything. How to keep books and ride horses and stand up for what's right. How to survive and how to thrive. How to love." "That last one," Silas said. "That's the most important." "I know." Eliza smiled. "That's why we start now." The baby came in winter, on the coldest night of the year. Martha served as midwife, with Silas pacing the main room like a caged animal until Eliza's voice called him in. "Come meet your daughter." He entered the room slowly, as if afraid any sudden movement might shatter the miracle before him. Eliza lay in bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft wool. "Her name is Hope," Eliza said, "because that's what she is. That's what we built." Silas knelt beside the bed and touched his daughter's face with trembling fingers. She was so small, so perfect, so impossibly real. "Hope," he whispered. The baby opened her eyes, dark like her mother's, and looked at him as if she already knew who he was. "I'm going to protect you," he said, "from everything. I'm going to give you a world where you never have to be afraid, where you never have to run, where you always know you're loved." "She already knows," Eliza said softly. "She's known since the moment she existed." Silas looked at his wife. This woman who had stepped off a stagecoach bleeding and broken, and had built a kingdom with him from nothing but courage and hope. "I love you," he said. "I've said it before, but I need you to know, every day, for the rest of our lives, I love you. I love you too." Eliza reached out and touched his face. "And I always will." Outside, the winter wind howled across the valley. But inside the house, warmth filled every corner. A family had been born. A legacy had begun. Years passed. Hope grew into a fierce, brilliant girl who could ride before she could read and argue before she could walk. 2 more children followed, a boy named Thomas after Eliza's father, and a girl named Grace after the thing they had all been given. The ranch prospered. The town grew. The railroad came through just as everyone had predicted, and Willow Creek transformed from a dusty outpost into a thriving community. Eliza kept the books until her eyesight faded, then taught Hope to take over. Silas worked the land until his shoulders gave out, then taught Thomas to carry on. They grew old together, as they had promised, side by side, hand in hand, through every joy and sorrow that life offered. On their 50th anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered on the porch of the house that Silas had built and Eliza had made into a home. They ate and laughed and told stories about the old days, about bandits and battles, about a woman who had arrived bleeding and a man who had caught her. When the party finally wound down and the house grew quiet, Silas and Eliza sat together in their chairs by the fire. Her hand found his, as it always did. No regrets. she asked. None. He looked at her, the lines on her face, the silver in her hair, the light that still burned in her eyes. You, just one. His brow furrowed. What? Eliza smiled. That I didn't find you sooner. Silas laughed, the same warm sound she had learned to treasure 50 years ago. We found each other exactly when we were supposed to, he said. Not a moment too soon. Not a moment too late. You really believe that? I believe in you. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it, the way he had done 1,000 times before. That's the only belief I've ever needed. Eliza leaned her head against his shoulder and closed her eyes. The fire crackled. The house settled. The wind whispered across the land they had fought for, bled for, built together. She thought about the girl who had stepped off that stagecoach so many years ago, broken alone, carrying nothing but a trunk full of memories and a heart full of fear. That girl was gone now. In her place was a woman who had learned the most important truth of all. Home is not a place you find. It is a choice you make, a person you love, a life you build one day at a time. Eliza Drummond had made her choice, and she had never looked back. The land endured, the legacy continued, the love remained. This was their story, this was their truth, and it was finished completely, perfectly, forever.